Hello and welcome to FandomWire. I'm James, and today I'm going to be talking about 5 movies that I personally would like to see Sony make using the Marvel characters at their disposal. Currently in the pipeline, Sony have Venom 2, Kraven, a Black Cat and Silver Sable movie, Madam Web, and Morbius. The first character that I would like to see added to this list is the Tarantula. His real name is Anton Miguel Rodriguez, and he is South America's own Captain America, or so he proclaims. His origin story is fairly simple. He was taken notice of by the Dalvadian government, who turned him into the Tarantula. However, he was a very violent person, and when his antics got too much, they decided to go after him. So he fled South America, and he moved to New York illegally, and then he began working in the city's criminal underworld. So currently there are 2 Marvel Cinematic Universes in play. There's the Sony Venom universe, which is where all of their upcoming projects will be, and you also have Disney's Marvel Cinematic Universe, which is where Tom Holland's Spider-Man currently resides after Far From Home. So the reason that I highlight this distinction is that I believe Sony should make a Tarantula movie inside of the MCU so that he can play off of Captain America and the Super Soldier program. Tarantula would be South America's response to the USA's success, but it would go horribly wrong, and what we would get is the first villain movie inside of the MCU that delves into the downfall of Rodriguez. Now let's move on to the second character that I think Sony should give a movie, and that is Cindy Moon, otherwise known as Silk. Now I would have Silk be an MCU movie because Cindy Moon was already introduced in Spider-Man Homecoming. However, they could just as easily make it an animated movie set in the Into the Spider-Verse multiverse that they have created. So what I would do with her is I would go back in time to before Spider-Man Homecoming, and I would show her getting bit by the same spider that bit Tom Holland's Peter Parker. Now this would show us his origin story, but it would still be focused on her, so we'd get the best of both worlds. And then from there I would fast forward to when the decimation happens, and I would have her be someone that survives Thanos' snap, and she lives on in this 5-year gap as Silk. So all of these so far have been MCU movies, but my third one is a Sony movie that would also appeal to a wide array of fans. It's one that I believe could make Sony $1 billion without the need of Disney. And so that idea, the third pitch here, is a live-action Spider-Verse movie. It's something that fans have been asking for ever since Tom Holland debuted in the MCU, and ever since Doctor Strange talked about the multiverse. So what I would personally do is I would bring in Tom Holland, Tobey Maguire, Andrew Garfield, Nicolas Cage as Spider-Man Noir, and Emma Stone as Spider-Gwen. And then, rather than telling these same stories into the Spider-Verse, I'd go with something a little bit more comic accurate, and I would have a movie that delves into Morlun and the Inheritors trying to kill the spider totems and eat them. And what you could do is you could use Madam Web or Doctor Strange to bring all of these spider characters together. So my next movie would have to be in the MCU again, and that is because the character's father was introduced in Spider-Man Far From Home. I'm talking about Man-Wolf, whose father is J. Jonah Jameson, and I believe that this movie would benefit from being far more character-driven and focusing on the relationship between the dad and the son. And the reason that I say that is because I think talking and delving into the idea of a character who hates superheroes and vigilantes, having a son that becomes one, and also becomes a werewolf, would be really interesting to see, and it would also be a huge step up from Spider-Man 2's Jameson, who was a prop that was used to make Peter jealous. So this final movie pitch, the 5th one, would yet again have to be in the MCU, and that is because so many of Spider-Man's characters have been introduced in Homecoming and Far From Home, and this character's boss is J. Jonah Jameson, a movie about Robbie Robertson. So if you're familiar with Spider-Man mythos, or you know a lot about the late 80s in the comics, or you've read them yourselves, you'll know that Robbie Robertson's backstory was linked very much to Tombstone, one of Spider-Man's villains. What happens is that he knows about Tombstone's crimes, but he's too scared to report them, which makes him complicit in all of his crimes, in his murders, and his gang involvement. And this really eats at Robbie Robertson after a while, because when Tombstone reappears in New York City, he feels the urgency to do something about it. Now that's what this movie could be about. It could be about an investigative reporter trying to shut down a villain that has plagued him his entire life. It would be such a powerful story that is so much more than your usual hero versus villain, and it would break the mold entirely. Robbie Robertson could also be introduced as a character in this movie, which would expand on the Daily Bugle mythos in the same way that the Man-Wolf movie would. So those are the 5 movies that I think Sony should make using their Marvel characters. Now a lot of these are in the MCU, and that is because a lot of the characters were already introduced in Homecoming and Far From Home, so there's not much way that they could do that in the Venom universe instead. However, I do believe that they should incorporate the Venom universe into the MCU in the same way that the Netflix universe is connected. I do believe that they should renew the deal and that everything should be together rather than split into 2. However, that's up to the execs and not up to me. It was only because of Tom Holland that the deal was renewed, so it's on very finite ground right now. So who knows? But what 5 movies do you want to see Sony make? Tell us if they're MCU or in the Venom universe, and let us know your thoughts on my list in the comments below. Feel free to follow FandomWire on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube, and we also have a website that you can subscribe to. Thanks for watching.